Hello and welcome to your next lesson. In the last video, we discussed how you can refresh and update your pivot table data based on a manual process. Today, we'll discuss how you can automate this process, making the manual process no longer necessary. This can be done by referencing columns only in your data range or as a table, as today's video will demonstrate. Please open the Pivot worksheet and go to the NBA Stats tab to follow along in this lesson. Okay, so here we are on our spreadsheet, and today we'll be working from NBA Stats from 489 players. We will reference columns and then a table, so as data is added to our list, it will automatically be updated in our pivot table. Okay, so let's begin by selecting column A and all the way through M. So please note that I did not reference any rows in this case. I am only referencing columns. So if I was to scroll to the bottom beyond the data, you will see that my columns extend beyond 489. So I can add information into these empty rows, and that is how my data will continue to be updated. Okay, so now with my columns added, I'm going to go ahead and say Insert. I'm going to say Pivot Table. So again, as you look at your table or data range, you'll see the data range says NBA Stats, which is the name of my tab, and it is referencing column A through M without referencing any rows. Now let's go ahead and say OK. We're going to leave it checked as New Worksheet and go ahead and say OK. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and select Teams. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a count, which is referencing 488. I said 489 initially because it did count the column headings. Okay, so now let's go back over to our stats. Let's scroll all the way down. And let's go ahead and add a test team in row 490. And I'll just call it test team 1. And I'll go ahead and add a test team 2. Now let's head back over to our pivot table tab. Alright, now you see it still references 488. Let's go ahead up to pivot table analyze, and let's just go ahead and say refresh. So this should go from 488 to 490. And as you can see, it did. I think I would like to go ahead and name this tab because we will be jumping back and forth. So let's go ahead and double click the tab, and let's just call it NBA Pivot. Okay, so now I would like to reference my data based on a table. So I'm going to begin by deleting the information that we added in row 490 and 491. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my mouse inside of the first cell, and then I'll say Insert. Now you may remember from a previous lesson when we created tables in Excel. Now these tables will automatically update when additional information is added. We will be using that same type of table for referencing our pivot data. So let's just go ahead and select Table. And as you can see, Excel has selected my entire range of data. And now I do want to leave. My table has headers checked. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And as you can see, I now have created a table. Now I'm going to go ahead and give my table a name. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the text box. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this NBA Table. Now let's go ahead and head over to our NBA Pivot tab. Let's go ahead and change the data source. Let's select the Pivot Table Analyze tab. Let's select the drop down for Change Data Source. Now we're going to just go ahead and type NBA Table, and we're going to go ahead and say OK. So now I would like to add a few rows to our table to see if our updates are made. Let's head over to the Spare tab. I'm going to select the rows on the worksheet, and I'm going to say Copy. I'm going to head over to the NBA Stats worksheet. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. I'll place my mouse inside of cell 490. I'll do a right click and then I'll go ahead and say paste. Alright, now I'm going to go back over to my NBA Pivot tab. Select our pivot table. Let's head up to our Analyze tab. Let's say refresh. And so now we're looking at 493 records. So as you can see, it's very easy to add an automated process. You can do this via the columns or the table, whichever is your preference. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the lesson. Now in the next video, we will go ahead and build our pivot table based on our NBA stats. We'll also get into our designing options. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you in the next video. Congratulations on completing another video and on your commitment to learning this program. I hope that you are getting the most out of our level up lessons, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.